Some FSU fans are freaking out about their current quarterback commit taking a visit to another school this past weekend, and we're going to break down what happened, what's been reported, and then give you the truth behind the visit today. Luke Kromenhoek is the number 8 overall quarterback in the 2024 recruiting class. He's currently committed to Florida State out of Savannah, Georgia. He's been committed to the noles since March 26th of last year, so a little over a year. Mike Norvell and his staff got in extremely early here, and the offers for Luke have rolled in, but he stayed faithful to his pledge. He took a visit to Penn State this weekend, and Steve Wiltfong reported on that visit in an exclusive interview. Luke was quoted as saying, "The visit to Penn State went really great. They rolled out the red carpet for me and my family." He followed that up by saying he has a lot to think about. I thought this was an interesting article, and Florida State fans certainly got pretty concerned when they heard this and they saw that quote in the article. I want to point out, Luke Kromenhoek does have a lot to think about. This is one of the most important decisions of the young man's life. And as someone who obviously wants the best for Florida State, I would prefer him to be in garnet and gold for the next few years, but ultimately he does have that decision to make. I do want to point out a few things about this article. I do take issue with a couple of things in this article. I think Wiltfong's a good guy, and I think he does a good job. So this isn't some kind of personal attack or shot or anything like that, but I do want to give my perspective on it. Just before I do that, I want to tell you guys about our tailgate this weekend. If you're coming to Tallahassee for the spring game, we have a big tailgate plan right there on the Legacy Walk. You can get tickets on Eventbrite. I'll link it above, and I'll put it down in the description. Come hang out. Free food, free drinks, anything you're looking for, all included with your ticket. You also get about $40 worth of gift cards to local Tallahassee establishments such as Garnet and Gold, Guthrie, Smoothie Time, and we're throwing in some stuff from Gramco. To come hang out with us at the spring game, again, link will be above and below in the description. So here's what I take issue with. I think Steve does a really good job. And this article was written from a Penn State perspective, but in most recruiting articles like this that I've seen, when a kid is currently committed to a certain school, that school is almost always asked about. They almost always ask, hey, can you talk to us about your commitment to XYZ school? Can you talk to us about your relationship with Florida State or wherever that school might be? I've seen that in recent articles with Jordan Pride on both 247 and on 3. So this isn't just one site doing it, another site not doing it. When Jordan Pride visited Florida recently, they were asked about that relationship with not only Mike Norvell, not only the staff, but the new defensive backs coach, the secondary coach, Pat Surtain. I've seen it happen with kids Florida State's trying to flip. Landon Thomas has been asked about his commitment. Jeremiah Smith has been asked about his commitment to Ohio State. And so it's not super uncommon. Steve didn't do this. Or if he did, he didn't include this in his article. So I think Steve Wiltfong got FSU fans all up in a tizzy by either one, not asking about his status with Florida State, or number two, just not including that, which I think there's a reason for. I think there's probably a good reason he didn't include that. Not accusing Steve of clickbaiting here, but I do think his article loses a ton of shock value and a ton of shares and a ton of excitement from that Penn State. It also loses a ton of freak out from the Florida State fan base if Luke admits in the article and in the interview that he's solid to the noles. And from that perspective, I understand Wiltfong either, again, not asking or not including it. Luke is monumental to Florida State's class. We've told you that he's a guy that Mike Norvell has put a ton of energy into. He's a guy that has offers from many Power 5 programs, so many that we can't even list them all. And he's their QB of the future. He's about as rock solid as they come. He's a top 60 player, and if he rises 20 to 30 more spots, he could be the first 5-star commit that Florida State has landed in a long time. He's also the glue of the class. He's there in Tallahassee every other weekend, it seems, since he lives so close in Savannah, Georgia. He's the one who's been actively recruiting others to come to school with him, and he's probably the most important recruit, being the quarterback of the class. But I do think the premature panic is just that from FSU fans. Premature. I get it. You don't necessarily want your quarterback taking a ton of visits if he's locked in. And we hold that position in a little bit different light than other positions, which probably isn't fair to quarterbacks. But quarterbacks also get hype and recognition when teams do well. So there's some give and take there. And I know that quarterback recruiting hasn't been the smoothest thing for Florida State fans the last 5 or so years. But I've been told that FSU knew about the visit, they weren't overly concerned about it, and they still feel that Luke is a solid commit. I think the trouble typically comes in situations like this when kids aren't upfront with the staff that they're committed to as to what's going on. As long as the communication and honesty are maintained, there isn't usually a problem. Luke actually came out and publicly addressed the rumors and speculation and the freak out after the Wiltfong article, and we'll talk to you about that in just a moment, but I want to give a quick shout out to our Discord. I've got a link above right now that you can click on and interact with us over there in that server. YouTube's not great for interaction and back and forth. Hundreds of FSU fans are over there right now chatting about everything from recruiting to the LSU game to tailgates and more. So hit that button and go hang out. Completely free. There are some paid channels if you want some exclusive insight. Members of this YouTube channel do get access to that. But the channel, the server itself is free, and we'd love to have you hanging out over there. Again, Luke took to Instagram to address some of this speculation, and we'll put that up on the screen right now. In a post by the noles.recruiting account, they explained some of Steve's article and said they were trying to not freak out. Luke replied emphatically, "I'm a nole." And then he confirmed his visit plans to FSU this weekend. So he crushed some of the freak out and some of the nerves. Again, I think if Wiltfong would have asked him about his commitment status to FSU, he probably would have responded in this very same way, that he's a nole, that he's locked in with Florida State. He probably would have talked about the relationship that he has with Mike Norvell, Tony Tokars, Alex Atkins, and the staff. And he likely would have affirmed his plans to attend FSU's spring game. And if he had done all that, I think Steve's article probably loses a little bit of its luster, probably loses a little bit of its shock factor, and at the end of the day, probably just gets less eyes on it. And so I understand him not doing it. Again, we'll obviously keep a close eye on this. We'll keep you updated here with anything that we're hearing. We'll also put news over in our Discord for anything that we see. I've interacted with Luke some. Seems to be a pretty genuine kid. I expect him to be good on his word and show up at FSU's spring game this weekend. Again, we'll be there tailgating and expect to have a really, really good time. FSU fans probably need to take a quick chill pill on this one. Writers and reporters could probably be a bit more thorough as well to tell the full story. And kids need to be allowed to be kids. All of the above is true. What are your thoughts? Do you think we have anything to worry about here? Do you think as Noles fans we should be on panic alert? Has Luke's words on Instagram maybe quenched some of your frustration? Let me know down in the comments and we'll be happy to chat about it there. Luke is one of 10 potential 5-stars that could sign with Florida State this cycle. We broke down all 10 of them and told you which ones would pick the Noles in a video yesterday. Check that out right here.